a mas'ala that I mentioned yesterday, which needs clarification. So please listen to this carefully. In fact, two. One is to do with any female whose menstruation, haid, begins before she is able to perform her Umrah. Okay, I will repeat what I said yesterday more clearly. I've checked in the books. I've also checked in last year's recording when I explained it in a bit more detail. And the other mas'ala is also to do with both men and women regarding the cutting of the hair. And that also needs a bit more elaboration. Now, the first mas'ala is if a woman is traveling for Hajj. In the case of all of us here, we will be traveling with the intention of Hajj Tamattu', which means that we will be making the intention when we put the ihram on to go and perform Umrah first. Once we have completed our Umrah, we will then exit the ihram. The Umrah will be completed. It will be a complete package, everything done. And then we will exit our ihram by cutting our hair or shaving our head. And then we will live in Makkah Mukarramah like any other person, local people of Makkah Mukarramah, and all the other Hujjaj like ourselves. And then on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, and actually in your case, during the night of the 7th of Dhul Hijjah, before the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah, you will then put on a new ihram, a fresh ihram, with the intention of your Hajj. If a woman is traveling from here, and her menstruation begins, or she is traveling and she's already in a state of menstruation, haid, was even before her journey, and now if her menstruation begins, then she should enter the state of ihram. She should enter the state of ihram with the intention of Umrah. But this will also, again, you need to consult with a good alim. If she knows that her cycle is such that every month her menstruation lasts for 7 days, for example. Her menstruation has begun at such a time that she now knows that she will be able to perform her Umrah before Hajj, which means the 9th day of Dhul Hijjah. The 9th day of Dhul Hijjah, which is Yawm Arafah, the day of Arafah, is the main day of Hajj. She knows that her menstruation will end in time for her to perform an Umrah, and then before the 9th day of Dhul Hijjah, before the day of Arafah. And Arafah is Hajj. Al-Hajju Arafah. The Prophet ﷺ said, Hajj is Arafah. Then what she will do is, she will enter the state of ihram before the miqat. Okay, before the miqat zone, which is on your sheet, the printout, and we looked at it yesterday. Okay. Now, how can she enter a state of ihram when she is napak? Okay, when she is in a state of ritual impurity, uncleanliness. The answer to that is to enter the state of ihram. In order to enter the state of ihram, cleanliness, taharat, or cleanliness, paki, is not a condition. Even you can enter a state of ihram in a napak state, napak condition. Also, to perform the 2 rakat of ihram is not a condition for the validity of your ihram. Okay? To perform the 2 rakat of salat of ihram is not a condition, shart, of the validity, sihat, of your ihram. So a woman who is menstruating, bleeding, can make the intention of ihram before entering the miqat zone, either from home or at the airport or on the aeroplane, by saying the talbiyah and making the intention of Umrah. If she knows she will be able to do the Umrah before the 9th day of Dhul Hijjah, in which case she will have no problem at all. If she knows that she will not be able to perform an Umrah before the 9th of Dhul Hijjah because of her specific set of dates. Okay? To give you a clear example, she knows every month she menstruates, has a menstruation for 7 days. And there are now 5 days left before the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, the day of Arafah, and she is flying today. There are just 5 days left before the day of Arafah. She knows from her adat, okay, her cycle, that there's no way that her menstruation would have ended before the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, the day of Arafah, which is the day of Hajj, main day of Hajj. Then what she will do is, before she enters the miqat zone, either at home or at the airport or on the plane, as was described to you yesterday, she will enter the state of ihram with just the intention of Hajj. In which case, she will be performing which type of Hajj? Which type out of the three? The very third type of Hajj, which is Hajj Ifrad. Ifrad means singular. Just a single form of ibadah, which is just the Hajj. In which case she will have no problem at all again. I again stress to you that if any circumstance arises, then always consult with a good alim. Okay? I'm just giving you some guidelines, but then a fatwa will be case specific. So if a case arises, then you need to consult with a good alim. Now, in the case of most women, what may happen, like I described to you yesterday, like one woman in our group last year had complications because she had taken medication to prevent her menstruation from happening, but that didn't work. And then she was bleeding, and then not bleeding the next day, the bleeding the next day, and so on, and that caused a lot of confusion. The similar thing happened when we went for Hajj before the last Hajj. The first time I went for Hajj, again in our group, there was a lady from this town who also had a similar problem. She had taken medications, and then she started bleeding. So medication does not always work. And there were people with us last year who also took medication, and their medication worked. So it varies from individual to individual, and also the ulama also differ on this. Everyone says it's permissible, or most of the ulama say it is permissible to use any form of dawai, medication, to prevent your or delay your menstruation. As to whether one should do it or not, advisable or not, they differ on this. I will not go into that. Now, what most likely will happen with women is that, with such women, is that she would have entered the state of ihram for Umrah when she left. And then, before she performs her Umrah, her menstruation begins, the haid begins. She has not been able to perform her Umrah, and she has started bleeding. Then she will wait. Obviously she can't perform the Umrah, because in order to do the Umrah, one of the two fard elements of Umrah is to do tawaf of Baytullah, of the house of Allah. And in order to do the tawaf, you need to be in a state of wudu. And also physically, to do the tawaf, you need to enter the Al-Masjid al-Haram, Haram Sharif. And for a person to enter any masjid, let alone Al-Masjid al-Haram, Haram Sharif, in a state of napaki, ritual impurity, is itself impermissible, unlawful, guna. Therefore, she will not be able to do her Umrah because of this. So she will have to wait. She will arrive in Makkah Mukarramah, and she will wait until her menstruation has ended. If after her menstruation has ended, there is enough time before Yawm Arafah, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, to do her Umrah, she will do her Umrah, and then she will complete her Hajj like all the other Hujjaj, all the other Hajjis. In which case, she has nothing, no penalty to pay, nothing. She's just fine. If her menstruation does not end, and she is in a state of ihram for Umrah, but her menstruation has not ended yet, and the 9th of Dhul Hijjah has arrived, the day of Arafah has arrived, then she will do what the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam advised Amada Ummul Mu'minin Aisha radiyallahu anha, which is a famous incident recorded in the books of Hadith, is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructed her to discard her Umrah, to forsake or discard her Umrah, ihram of Umrah, and then to enter a fresh ihram for Hajj. Okay, this is what she will do, because now there is practically no way she can perform her Umrah before the Hajj, because the day of Hajj, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah has arrived and she is still napak, she is still bleeding, then she will discard. She will exit the state of ihram for Umrah. She will discard it, she will exit it. Rafadat ihrama umratiha. The books will state in fiqh that she will discard, she will throw away. Meaning she will exit, come out of the state of ihram for Umrah. And then she will enter, make another fresh intention with talbiyah, etc., in the intention of Hajj, and enter a new ihram for Hajj. Again, she can, that's fine. She can enter a state of ihram because taharat or cleanliness, ritual cleanliness is not a condition for the validity of your ihram. And she will enter a new ihram. Now, what she will do is, she will go with the Hujjaj as normal. She will go to Mina on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, and then she will go to Arafat on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. After sunset of that day, she will go with them to Muzdalifah, spend the night in Muzdalifah. The next day, after praying Fajr, she will come with all the Hujjaj back to Mina, to their tents. And then, like all the other Hujjaj, she will also pelt the Al-Jamratul Aqaba, the big shaitan. And then, like all the other Hujjaj, she will also sacrifice an animal. She will not sacrifice an animal because she has not completed Hajj Tamattu'. Hajj Tamattu' meaning she has not completed an Umrah and then a Hajj. And this Qurbani or sacrifice of an animal on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, which for the rest of the Muslims is the day of Eid al-Adha. This Qurbani for you, Hujjaj, is not the Qurbani of Eid. This Qurbani is a Damu Shukr, Shukrana ki Qurbani. Okay, it's a Qurbani, sacrifice of gratitude to Allah Ta'ala. Gratitude for what? Gratitude, shukriya to Allah Ta'ala that has enabled you to perform two great forms of ibadat, an Umrah, which is a lesser pilgrimage, a mini Hajj, and the main Hajj, Al-Hajjul Akbar, in one journey. So you've stoned, or you've hit two birds with one stone, with a single stone. Meaning that you've made one safar, one journey, and in one journey you've done two things, an Umrah plus a Hajj. And for that it is wajib for you to now to express your gratitude to Allah Ta'ala, shukr to Allah Ta'ala, by sacrificing an animal or 1/7 portion of a large animal like a camel on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. This is not going to be in place of qaim maqam of your Qurbani of Eid al-Adha. It is not. I'll mention the masail relating to Eid al-Adha and whether you should do a Qurbani or not for your Eid when we get there, inshallah. So that's what you will do. Now, so she, the menstruating woman, will do everything except, of course, the Damu Shukr, the Qurbani of gratitude, which is part, which the Haji performing the Hajj Tamattu' and the best form, which is Hajj Qiran, must do. It is wajib for them to do this Qurbani. She will not do this because she has been deprived of the Umrah. She has not been able to do the Umrah. She will do all of this. And then the other big rukun of Hajj, beside the day of Arafah, being in Arafah, is what is known as the Tawaf Ziyarah, which is the Tawaf of your Hajj. That's the Tawaf of your Hajj. The time for that, for the Hujjaj Hajjis, begins from dawn, as-subh as-sadiq, Fajr of the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. The Fajr, the beginning time of Fajr, as soon as Fajr begins on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, from that time to the sunset of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, the Sharia has given us this flexibility, a very long time. With all these forms of ibadat, especially the core ones, like the day of Arafah, I will give you the times of Arafah, when it is sunnah to be in Arafah, for how long, etc., and when it is makruh in Arafah, etc. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the flexibility, a very long time to observe Arafah. The second most important part of your Hajj is the Tawaf Ziyarah, which is the Tawaf of your Hajj. For that also, the time period is also very long. Allah Ta'ala has given us with a very long slot within the days of Hajj in which to do that. And that slot or time is from the dawn, as-subh sadiq, subh sadiq, fajr of the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, all the way to the sunset, ghurub aftab, maghrib of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. You must do your Tawaf Ziyarah within that time, which really gives you 1, 2, 3 days. 3 full days, 10th, 11th and 12th of Dhul Hijjah, in which to do your Tawaf Ziyarah. If you don't do it within that time, then you will have to give a dam. Okay? A penalty. Also, the penalties vary. A penalty could be a larger animal, badana, camel, it could be a goat, and sometimes it could be jaza, it could be a small monetary financial penalty. Okay? Depending on what contravention or violation of your ihram you have committed. This is why you will have to always consult. If you do something wrong, you will have to consult with a good alim. You have to explain to the alim what thing you did wrong, how you contravened your ihram, the hurmat of your ihram, the sanctity of your ihram, for how long, how you did it, what you did, for how long. For example, if a woman kept her face covered, or a man kept his head covered, then it will depend on for how long he did it. Or a man wore stitched clothing, okay, then it will depend on for how long you did that. Okay, so you need to consult, you need to seek the advice of a good alim who is knowledgeable with regard to the very complicated laws of Hajj. So he will then give you a fatwa which is case specific, and he will tell you what you need to do, what the penalty is for you. So the Tawaf Ziyarah, the main Tawaf of your Hajj, has got to happen between the Fajr of the 10th of Dhul Hijjah and the Maghrib, Ghurub Aftab of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, sunset of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. For the menstruating woman, she is exempted from this time restriction because she is menstruating, she is bleeding, she is in a state of napaki. For her, when her menstruation ends, whenever that may be, whichever date, after the cut-off date, time of the Maghrib of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, she will then take a ghusl, a bath or a shower, shar'i shower, and then she will perform her Tawaf Ziyarah. Okay? She has been given that exemption or concession, leeway by the Sharia, because of that which is not within her capacity or her power. Now, in the case of a woman who had already entered the ihram of Umrah, and then she discarded the ihram of Umrah, she exited the ihram of Umrah, and then she entered a new, fresh ihram for Hajj, and she did what I've just described, then she will still have to give a dam. She will have to give the penalty of a sacrifice of an animal because of the violation of the ihram. Okay, because she violated the ihram of Umrah. Because once you have entered the state of ihram for Umrah, you are not allowed to exit the ihram of Umrah except by performing and completing an Umrah. And if you do so, even for a menstruating woman, she has to, due to the sanctity and hurmat of the ihram, she has to now pay the penalty of a dam. Okay. And that is taken from the incident of Ummul Mu'minin Aisha radiyallahu anha, that it happened to her and she was unable to perform her Umrah before the Hajj, when she and other Ummahatul Mu'minin, mothers of the believers, accompanied the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam during his one and only Hajj journey. She was unable to do it, and I've mentioned the other day, and she was crying. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam found her crying, and he asked what had happened, and she said that everyone will be returning to Medina with an Umrah and a Hajj, and I'm going to return with just a Hajj. So the Prophet ﷺ commanded her brother Abdurrahman ibn Abi Bakr radiyallahu anhuma to, after Hajj, to take her to what is now known as Masjid Aisha in Tan'im, which if you look at your second little map that I've given you, limits of Haram of Makkah, limits of the Haram of Makkah, then you will see there's a place there called Tan'im. Okay? So, Tan'im is where she was taken by her brother, radiallahu anhuma, and then she entered a state of ihram for Umrah. From there, from Tan'im, and then she entered the haram boundary of Makkah and Mukarramah, and then she performed the Umrah. This was after Hajj. And because Aisha radiallahu anha, she donned ihram, she entered the state of ihram for Umrah from that location in Tan'im. Later the Muslims built a big masjid there. And when you will also go there, and when you will be doing extra Umrahs, inshallah, either before Hajj or after your Hajj, when you want to perform an extra Umrah, if you have the courage, the energy to do so, most advisable after Hajj, so that you do not exhaust yourself before Hajj. Because you're going there for Hajj, that's your main maqsood. So, in the case of most people, it would be best, advisable for them to attempt extra Umrahs after they've completed their Hajj. Keep your body fresh, energetic, full of vigor for your Hajj. What you will do, you will leave Makkah Mukarramah, you will leave the haram boundary of Makkah Mukarramah, and normally people will go to this place called Tan'im, because that is the nearest location outside the haram zone. That's the nearest location. And also the facilities are there. There's a huge, magnificent masjid there, with all the facilities for changing your ihram, toilets, water, everything's there. You will change into your ihram, or in the case of most people, they would have put on the ihram clothing, sheets of cloth, and then they will go there. You go to Tan'im, you will pray 2 rakat of your ihram salat there. You will make the intention, Allahumma inni uridul umrata fayassirha li wa taqabbalha minni, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik bil umrati labbaik, innal hamda wa ni'mata laka wal mulk la sharika lak. You will say the talbiyah 3 times, and while saying that, and whilst uttering the words of the intention, niyat, you would have then entered the state of ihram for Umrah. You will come back to Makkah, to Al-Masjid al-Haram, then or later, whenever, and you will then perform your Umrah, a fresh Umrah. That's one mas'ala. The other mas'ala is regarding the cutting of the hair. I will mention that inshallah when we've discussed the Umrah in a bit more detail. So we're now about to perform our Umrah. I mentioned the Umrah, the skeleton of the Umrah yesterday, the summary of your Umrah. The Umrah you will perform, so you've performed, you put on your Umrah 2 sheets of ihram cloths in the case of men, and in the case of women, they've kept the face uncovered in a state of ihram. Uncovered meaning that no material cloth is touching the skin of their face. That is the ihram. The ihram is in their face. And then you perform 2 rakat of salat to enter the state of ihram for your Umrah. It is preferable, mustahab or desirable to read after Surah Al-Fatiha, Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun in the first rakat, and in the second rakat, Qul huwallahu ahad, Surah Al-Ikhlas. After you said the salam, you will then pronounce the words of intention, of niyat. You will say, Allahumma inni uridul umrata, fayassirha li wa taqabbalha minni. Oh Allah, I intend Umrah, therefore make it easy for me, and accept it from me. Taqabbalha minni, and accept it from me. If you do not know these words in Arabic, don't worry about it. This is just made up. It's not a sunnah or anything. You can just say it in your own language, in English, Urdu, Punjabi, whatever. Okay, it doesn't matter. If you know it, then it's good to say it in Arabic. However, you must learn the words of the talbiyah. Okay, because this is going to be the Hajj's zikr. This is going to be your zikr. This is going to be the chorus of the Hujjaj, that you will be saying the talbiyah all the time, except certain points, like when you begin your tawaf, you will stop. When you start pelting the first shaitan, you will stop your talbiyah, and so on. Otherwise, you will always say the talbiyah, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik, innal hamda wa ni'mata laka wal mulk la sharika lak. You will just keep saying that. Make sure everyone learns the words of the talbiyah, which are very, very straightforward, simple, and also learn the meaning, so that when you're saying it, you say it knowing what you're saying. You may not know the translation word for word, but you should know the gist of what you're saying. Okay, the khulasa of what you're saying. So you've now entered your ihram. Then, and we discussed yesterday the do's and don'ts of ihram, the prohibitions of ihram, and those things which are allowed in a state of ihram. You will enter al-Masjid al-Haram in the sunnah manner by saying Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah, Allahumma aftah li abwaba rahmatik, and you step in to the al-Masjid al-Haram, Haram Sharif, with your right foot first. And also make sure you make the intention of i'tikaf, and nafal i'tikaf for as long as you remain in the masjid. When you say the Kaaba, you do what I mentioned to you, say 3 times, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, and then do dua. Exert yourself in dua, because this is a time when dua is accepted, and you will not get this feeling again in your life. For those who will be seeing the house of Allah Ta'ala physically in front of them for the first time in their lives, you will not experience this again. Make sure you do dua, shed some tears, weep in front of Allah Ta'ala, and do dua for all the goodness of this dunya and the akhirah, and do dua for yourself, your wife, your husband, your mother, father, grandparents, your own children, brothers, sisters, and the Muslim ummah at large. Do dua. Now you're about to begin your tawaf. Ji.
When you do i'tikaf, sunnat i'tikaf you can say ya nafil i'tikaf?
It will be a nafil i'tikaf. Sunnah i'tikaf is only during the last 10 days of Ramadan. This will not be sunnah, but at most you can call it a mustahab i'tikaf. So you can if you just say, Wallah, I intend observing i'tikaf for as long as I remain in this masjid. That's it. The nafil i'tikaf is valid for any duration of time. There's no limit to nafil i'tikaf. As soon as you step out of the masjid, your nafil i'tikaf completes. It doesn't break, it's completed. Okay? And then when you go into the masjid again, you make a fresh intention of nafil i'tikaf. So what will happen is, if you're doing other forms of ibadat whilst in the masjid, you will get the rewards, the thawab of those ibadat that you're performing. But you will also get an extra, a bonus thawab for the i'tikaf that you're doing. And i'tikaf means to be in the masjid with the intention of i'tikaf. Then you'll get an extra meter of thawab running in the background for you, like a computer processor. Okay. Now,
this masjid as well when you come here.
Yes, in any masjid, like I mentioned yesterday, in any masjid, wherever it may be, make a habit. As soon as you enter the masjid, in our masjid here, the Shari'i legal masjid is only downstairs where the red carpet is laid. Okay, the main hall and the room before the main hall. Upstairs is not the masjid here. Okay, legally it is not the masjid upstairs, only downstairs. So we're not in the masjid here. Anywhere upstairs is not the masjid here. Alright. Now you will go towards the black stone, Al-Hajar al-Aswad. When you get to the Hajar al-Aswad, now where is the black stone? I think most of you will know. I've given you some printouts. There's a printout or two showing you where the Al-Hajar al-Aswad is located. Now if you look at where it says Tawaf, the page, the printout with the heading Tawaf, and also there's another one. There's this one with the only two with the big pictures of the Kaaba and the surroundings, the objects around the Kaaba. Then you can see where the Al-Hajar al-Aswad is. Can you see? Can you see the black stone? We all know where the black stone is. You've seen it all your lives in photos. It's next to the door of the Kaaba. Okay? That's the black stone. Before the corner which houses the black stone, Al-Hajar al-Aswad, which is from Jannah, there's the corner before that is called Ar-Ruknul Yamani, the Yemeni corner. Okay? Ar-Ruknul Yamani, Yemen is in that direction, and that's historically that's what it has been called, Ar-Ruknul Yamani. Ar-Ruknul Yamani, when you're there, inshallah, you will see that it's quite smooth. That corner of the house of Allah is very smooth. Okay, it's polished. You will know, and you'll also see a lot of people pushing and shoving and trying to crowd around that corner to touch it. Okay, you will also touch it every time you go around it. You will touch it. That's Ar-Ruknul Yamani. Now your tawaf, if you will begin from in front of the black stone, Al-Hajar al-Aswad. Okay? Nowadays, there is a black belt on the floor, on the mataf. Mataf is the open space in front of, all around the Kaaba, the open space which does not have a roof, but nowadays there's also a structure, a circular structure which is temporarily put there in order to accommodate, facilitate the extra Hujjaj during the works that are expansion work that is taking place in the masjid. So they put this round circular structure around the house of Allah Ta'ala above your heads, on which also people will be doing tawaf. So that's the mataf. That area is the mataf around all around the Kaaba, where there is no roof of the masjid. That's called the mataf. Mataf means jaya tawaf, tawaf ki jagah. Although you can do tawaf anywhere within al-Masjid al-Haram, anywhere within the masjid you can do tawaf. You can just go around the house of Allah Ta'ala. Obviously, the further you go from the house of Allah, the longer your tawaf will become. The mataf area will be very, very it will completely chock-a-block during the Hajj season. There will be absolutely no space you will just have to move with people all around you. Everyone will be quite squashed. The mataf itself. What we did was, every time during our stay we did any tawaf, be it a nafal tawaf or the tawaf for Umrah or tawaf for Hajj, we always did tawaf upstairs. We went to the top floor or we went to the rooftop, and we did our tawaf there, where it's much easier, especially on the rooftop. I think they've opened it now. The tawaf areas have been opened upstairs. The works have been completed, so you can go to the upstairs floors. You can go to the first floor, or you can go to the roof of the masjid and do tawaf. If you go to the roof, it's much easier, and if you're doing it after dark, any tawaf after dark, then it's much cooler on the top of on the rooftop of al-Masjid al-Haram. There are still thousands of people doing it on there, but it's much more comfortable. But the only disadvantage is that your tawaf, your circuit becomes very big. Okay? But that you're compensated by the fact that you can move faster. Whereas if you were on the mataf around the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then although your circuit chakkar is much smaller, but you will be moving at a snail pace, okay, sluggishly, very, very slowly. You will not be able to move very fast. The other danger is, from our own experience, is that hijab is violated there. You will definitely be coming into contact with other people's bodies. You cannot avoid it. Men will be touching women, women will be touching men. It happens. I tried just once to do tawaf down there long after Hajj, and then after completing, I think just one circuit, one chakkar, and then I said, no, we can't do tawaf here. We'll go up, and we went upstairs. Okay, so you'll have to assess the situation. Now you begin your tawaf. So you go to the corner where the Al-Hajar al-Aswad, the black stone, is located, and then you will, inshallah, you will have no difficulty in locating the black stone. You will see the black stone there. If you can't see the stone because of people's heads, you will see that there will be police and soldiers pushing people away from there, because everyone will try to begin the tawaf from there, and they want to do dua, etc. there. And the volunteers, soldiers, police, etc., soldiers during the Hajj season mostly, they will try and push people away. Don't stand there. And you see that the sea of people going around the house of Allah Ta'ala suddenly stops at one corner. So you know that this is the corner which houses the black stone, Al-Hajar al-Aswad. Also, you can easily find the black stone by looking behind you near the arched walls of the masjid, and you will see a green light, a very green fluorescent light at one corner. And also that corner also has Safa, Mount Safa is in that corner. The other way to look at it is, if you can see, look down on the floor, you will see a thick black belt, as shown in these images, on the floor, on the marble floor of the mataf, extending all the way from the black stone, Al-Hajar al-Aswad, to the end of the mataf. So if you just stand on that line, face the Al-Hajar al-Aswad, the black stone. Now, ideally, you should begin your tawaf by first of all making the intention that, oh Allah, I am about to begin my tawaf of my Umrah. Okay? Make it easy for me, accept it from me. And then you place both your hands on the Al-Hajar al-Aswad and you kiss it. You don't smack it with your hands, nor do you give it a smack with your lips. You kiss it. But I can almost guarantee you that you will not be able to go anywhere near to the Hajar al-Aswad. You will not be, because there will be people trying to kill each other, elbowing, kicking, wrestling to the floor. Everyone committing a haram. To kiss the black stone is a mustahab act. At most, you can say it's a sunnah act. But to hurt and harm a Muslim is a grave haram, it's a kabira, major sin. But unfortunately you will see throughout your Hajj there will be people with very little knowledge of the deen, very little consideration for other people, and people will be doing wrong things throughout your Hajj. So just ignore that. You should not try to do that. Okay? During our first Hajj, there was someone in our group who came very triumphantly and said to me, I've done it. And I said, what? And he said, I've elbowed and pushed and kicked, and I've managed to get my head into the hollow case of which houses the black stone. I managed to get my head in, and people couldn't pull me out. I kept my head inside there. I managed to do it. I just said to myself, Inna lillahi astaghfirullah. Because in order to do it, you will commit lots of harams. By kicking, shoving, you will see people are literally almost killing each other to do it. It's haram. I would say don't even try it. Inshallah, because of your consideration for the Muslims, and because of you wanting to perform your Hajj in obedience to Allah Ta'ala, according to the Sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Allah Ta'ala will give you more than had you actually done kissed a black stone, inshallah. So throughout your Hajj, be very, very considerate. The people will be doing all sorts of things at every part of your Hajj. In Arafat, Mina, Arafat, Muzdalifah, people will have no consideration for each other. Illa man sha'Allah. But there are good people, but there are some people who go very uneducated, illiterate, ignorant people, arrogant people, also make it to Hajj. And may Allah Ta'ala accept the Hajj of everyone and make it a means of transformation of our lives. So you will go to level with the Hajarul Aswad. Be very careful that you do not pass the Hajarul Aswad and start your tawaf from there. Make your intention from there. So as you're coming towards the Hajarul Aswad, make the niyat there. You will, due to the sheer number of people, you will not have the time to go and stand in front of the Hajar al-Aswad and make your dua, etc. You will not, you'll have to do things in split seconds. So as you're walking towards Al-Hajar al-Aswad, the black stone, make the intention as you're walking. As you get to the line, parallel with the black stone, then very quickly, you will, because you will not be able to touch the black stone, nor will you'll not be able to kiss the black stone, nor the second degree down is to touch the black stone with your hand. Third degree down is to touch the black stone with a stick or a cane. You will not be able to do that either. And fourthly, you'll have to suffice with the fourth option, which is to gesture with your hands like this. Okay? You will raise your hands and you will say Bismillahi Allahu Akbar Walillahi Alhamd. Your hands will be raised up to your ears. Okay? You will raise your hands like this up to your ears, like this. And you will say Bismillahi Allahu Akbar Walillahi Alhamd. And then you will. So this is istilam or kissing of the black stone, or in your case, most likely doing ishara with your hands raised towards the black stone. You will have to do every time during the 7 circuits of your tawaf. Every time you come in line with the black stone, with the Al-Hajar al-Aswad, you'll have to do this. And then you begin your tawaf. Remember, when you're doing your tawaf, you will be doing your tawaf anti-clockwise. So your clock goes this, you will be doing this in this direction. In other words, the Kaaba, the house of Allah Ta'ala, will be always to your left. The Kaaba, during your circuits of your tawaf, will always be to your left. It is also makruh for you to look at the Kaaba whilst you're doing your tawaf. To look at the Kaaba whilst you're doing the tawaf, 7 circuits around the house of Allah, to look at the house of Allah Ta'ala is also considered makruh. You should also refrain from turning your back towards the Kaaba whilst you're doing your tawaf. You must not turn your back to the Kaaba. During tawaf only. When you're going out to the masjid, a lot of people think, like we see in our countries of origin, when they go to the graves of saints, awliya, then they exit the graves they tiptoe backwards. And that's stupid, silly. When you're exiting Al-Masjid al-Haram, you do not have to exit walking backwards with your face towards the Kaaba and walking backwards. You don't have to do that. If you do that, you'll probably get some beads back from the soldiers. They think that's a bid'ah, and it probably is a bid'ah, so you don't have to do that. However, yes, when you're leaving Makkah Mukarramah and you do your Tawaful Wida' or Tawaful Wada' or Tawaful Sadr, okay, your final farewell Tawaf at the end, when you're leaving Makkah Mukarramah, then they say that whilst you're leaving the house of Allah, then you should be looking back repeatedly at the Kaaba, and you should shed tears. You should cry that you're leaving the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So during your Tawaf, make sure you do not turn your back towards the house of Allah, and also make sure you do not look at the house of Allah. This is neglected by and not known by many people. Okay? You should not be looking. It is bi'adabi to look at the house whilst you're doing the Tawaf. Keep your gaze down or look in front of you so that you don't bump into any person. Ji.
When you're pushed in a rush, sometimes slightly you face.
Okay, yes. If you're pushed and jolted by the crowd, okay, then that's beyond your power. You can't do anything about it. If someone's pushed you, and pushing happens a lot, people don't deliberately push. It just happens. There will be a lot of pushing. If you're doing Tawaf on the Mataf, okay, on the open space, all around the house of Allah Ta'ala, then you will definitely be pushed and shoved throughout your Tawaf. People will be bumping into each other, you will be pushing others will be pushing you undeliberately, okay, inadvertently. People will not be doing it deliberately, but because possibly hundreds of thousands of people will be all crammed into that space, and this will happen. This is what my advice to sisters especially is: don't attempt to do any Tawaf at the Mataf, around the house of Allah. Try and go into the structure of the masjid, and if possible go on the roof if you want to do it comfortably during the night. Obviously during the day you'll have the 45 degrees scorching heat of the sun on your head, so don't go on the roof during the day, but during the night it's very comfortable upstairs on top of the roof. For brothers also, don't attempt to do a Tawaf on the Mataf if you think that you'll be touching the bodies of women, okay, ghair mahram women. Also the issue of whether, if you're going, husband and wife are going together, whether you can hold your hands or not. If they hold their hands, and if they hold hands and shahwat, lust arises, then there's also, some have said that they have to give dam for that. Others have said, according to the Hanafi School of Law, that there is no dam for it. Okay. In any case, try not. If you do hold your hands, and most people do, most couples hold their hands if they're doing Tawaf together, not because to express their love for each other or devotion, but for practical reasons that you will have to, otherwise you will lose your wife. That may be the loss forever. But so you do it. The other thing you'll notice there is that especially the Malaysian and Indonesian Muslims who follow the Shafi'i school, and any Shafi'i Muslims who follow the Shafi'i school out of the four schools, the Hanafiya, Shafi'iyya, Malikiyya, Hanabila, you will see that all the women will have gloves on. The reason for that is, according to the Shafi'i school, the madhab of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, if a man in a state of wudu touches any woman, then his wudu is broken. If he just touches a woman, okay, which we say is nonsense, doesn't make sense, illogical. That's why you will notice when you go to Makkah Mukarramah, every Malaysian or Indonesian looking woman would have hand gloves on, so that if her husband touches her, then his wudu is not broken. Anyway, if you hold your wife's hand during Tawaf or at any time throughout your Hajj, then be careful that there's no shahwat or lust, okay, arising in any of your minds or body. So,
well, be careful of people. They come in groups, mostly Turkish or Iranians. Some are doing all big group and really charged with the flag.
Inshallah, that should be obvious to you.
Pushed with the ladies, and that's a chance that you get pushed from behind, and the ladies in front.
When you're doing your Tawaf, as you're doing your Tawaf, you should engage in dhikr. Okay? You should engage in dhikr. When you, first of all, do the istilam of the black stone, to mark the beginning of your Tawaf, that is when you will stop your talbiyah. You will stop saying your labbaik Allahumma labbaik la sharika laka labbaik innal hamda wan ni'mata laka wal mulk la sharika lak. Remember also what I mentioned the other day, idtiba' for men. That because after this Tawaf, you will be doing what? Safa. Sa'i between Safa and Marwa as part of your Umrah. Then you will do idtiba'. For men, you will do idtiba', which means you will wear your upper sheet of your ihram in such a way that both the ends overlap, they go over your left shoulder, and your right shoulder is exposed. And also, you will do ramal. Men, only men. Men will do ramal. Ramal means that during the first 3 circuits of your tawaf, you will walk briskly at a fast pace with heaved chest, okay, and shoulders. And you'll be walking like this as if you're a warrior or a macho man. Okay, and the background to this is that when the Sahaba came with the Prophet ﷺ and they did tawaf during the Umrah, then the kuffar of Makkah, because Makkah then was the abode of the kuffar, they were in control of Makkah Mukarramah. So the kuffar were saying that, look at the Muslims who fled from Makkah with Muhammad ﷺ. The flu, the fever, the famous notorious fever or flu of Medina has weakened them, because Medina used to have a very there was a flu that used to be permanently in Medina Munawwara. People used to be inflicted by this flu or fever in Medina, and especially those, you will notice that the climate in Makkah even today is different, much different to the climate and weather in Medina Munawwara. So during then, Medina had this almost permanent flu there. People used to suffer in Medina Munawwara. But after the Prophet ﷺ did dua to Allah Ta'ala in Medina Munawwara to take this flu away, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala completely, until the Day of Judgment, cleansed Medina of this flu. So when they came to do tawaf, the kuffar were saying this. So the Prophet of Allah ﷺ advised the Sahaba that when they do the tawaf, to do the tawaf as if they're big, macho, very tough men. That is called ramal. And Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala loved this amal of the Sahaba so much that we are now commanded until the Day of Judgment, men, when we do tawaf of the house of Allah Ta'ala, even though that reason no longer remains, even now, it is sunnah for us to do ramal in the first 3 circuits of our tawaf. So you do ramal, walk briskly with a heaved up chest, and you will be walking like a warrior or a very brave or a very tough man for the first 3 circuits only. And you will engage in dhikr. A person is also allowed to engage in tilawat of the Holy Quran whilst doing tawaf. You can engage in any form of dhikr and dua. Always throughout your Hajj, engage in dua, because Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will accept your du'as in a state of ihram and in the Haramain Sharif and in Makkah Mukarramah, in Medina Munawwara, and in all the sites, the sacred holy sites of Hajj. Every time you come to a Ruknul Yamani, now if you look in this big image, this one, the biggest image of the Kaaba in your sheets here, then that will show you a Ruknul Yamani. Can you see? The Ruknul Yamani is located at the corner of the house of, the corner itself of the house of Allah Ta'ala, before the corner which houses the black stone. Every time you come to the Ruknul Yamani, then you should try and touch the Ruknul Yamani. Okay? Touch the Ruknul, but no kissing of the, you don't kiss the Ruknul Yamani, that corner of the house called Ruknul Yamani, you just touch it. You will probably not be able to do it because of the sheer number of people crowding there and trying to do it. Because of this congestion, you will not be able to do so. Don't do it. Just pass by it. But you will engage in a dua. Every time you either do the istilam or touching of Ruknul Yamani, or you pass by Ruknul Yamani, all the way to the next corner, which has the black stone, you will say, Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. Keep repeating this dua until you get to the black stone. When you reach the black stone, you will again do the istilam. In your case, you will not be able to do the istilam, kissing of the black stone. Then you will just gesture with raised hands from a distance, and then you will walk on.
Some people carry books which this dua extends. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatan wa qina adhaban nar wajhilna jannata ma'al abrar ya aziz ya ghaffar. Is that part of sunnah? That part of some books? If you can say it, but generally the books will just mention up to Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina adhaban nar, which is from the Quran. But if anyone adds more words to this, more words of dua to it, then I don't see any reason why that should be not allowed. Similarly, with any du'as
throughout your Hajj. You don't have to confine them to what is mentioned in the books. Okay? It will not be a bid'ah to do other forms of dua or to extend those du'as. So you can say those du'as. But the point is, try and say Rabbana atina fid dunya, this du'a, from the Ruknul Yamani corner to the next corner, which has the black stone. Okay. Now when you will complete your 7th circuit, the 7th short chakkar of the house of Allah Ta'ala, you will end your tawaf at the black stone, okay, in line with the black stone. After you've done that, you will now pray 2 rakat wajib salat of tawaf. Whenever you do a tawaf of the house of Allah Ta'ala, be it for your Umrah, be it for your Hajj, be it just a nafil tawaf, the tawaf must be followed by 2 rakat of salat. And those 2 rakat of salat are wajib. Those 2 rakat of salat of namaz, of tawaf, it is mustahab for you to perform them behind Maqam Ibrahim. Maqam Ibrahim, if you look at both these images of the Kaaba, if you look at both of them, both of these images will show you where the maqam is. Can you see? One says Abraham's station. Okay, that's the translation in English of Maqam Ibrahim. The other one says Maqam Ibrahim in the other image. Can you see it? So it's not very far from the house of Allah Ta'ala. It's actually in front of the door of the house of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and it's not very far from there. So you will pray 2 rakat of salat of your tawaf behind this point. This is called Maqam Ibrahim. If you are able to get anywhere close to Maqam Ibrahim, then you will see it's a casing, glass casing, which has a stone in there, and there's a footprint on that stone. So the tradition is that was a very special stone on which Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam stood when he and his son Ismail alayhi salam were rebuilding the Kaaba by the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused this stone to extend upwards and go downwards as they were putting the bricks of the house of Allah ta'ala. And that stone is still there, and it's been housed in this case. You will not be able to touch it. It's inside the glass. You will again see a lot of pushing and shoving near that always, throughout the day and night. People will be trying to have a glance at that stone which has the footprint on it. That is called Maqam Ibrahim, or the station, the place of Ibrahim alayhi salam. You will perform your 2 rakat salat of tawaf behind Maqam Ibrahim. The other thing you'll notice here is that semicircled wall in front of the Kaaba. Can you see that wall in front of the Kaaba, semicircle, half a circle? Now that is called Hijr or Hatim, Al-Hatim or Hijr. Now what this denotes or marks is that the original Kaaba was that long, up to there, the original Kaaba. You may have heard the story that the Quraysh, before Islam, before the arrival of Islam, the Kaaba was demolished, and the Quraysh wanted to rebuild the Kaaba. So what the Quraysh did, even the Jahili period Quraysh, who were kuffar, they knew the sanctity, the hurmat, the greatness of the house of Allah Ta'ala. So the chieftains of the Quraysh made a condition that people will do chanda, people will donate towards the costs of rebuilding of the Kaaba. But everyone must make sure that every single penny that they're donating towards this good cause must be 100% pure and halal. So they raised the monies, but there was not enough halal money in the community of Makkah to rebuild the Kaaba fully. So they made it smaller. And they left some space which is now marked by this curved wall in front of the house of Allah Ta'ala. When you do your tawaf, whenever you do your tawaf, make sure your tawaf is done outside this wall, the Hatim or the Hijr. For if you go through this wall, between the Kaaba and this wall, then it will be considered as if you had gone through the house of Allah Ta'ala, which means that circuit of your tawaf is incomplete. Which means your tawaf is also incomplete. Anyway, nowadays during the Hajj season and also during Ramadan, it is virtually impossible for you to even go in there, because there will be people who will be crowded there, others waiting by the side to get in there. And I would advise you not to try going in there. You can suffocate there because of the pushing and shoving inside it. So don't try to go in there anyway. But if someone does go in there and they're able to pray 2 rakat of salat, that will be considered as that person having performed 2 rakat of salat inside the Kaaba, because that is still the Kaaba. That is the limit. Okay, that is still the Kaaba. Although the building of the Kaaba, the structure of the Kaaba is now smaller. it was later also extended and then made smaller. And then when the Muslims became very rich, the Imams of Islam forbade the Muslim rulers to then again extend the Kaaba. They left it as the Sahaba had left it. Otherwise it would become a habit for every ruler to build and rebuild the Kaaba. Also with the doors, they left the door as it is. They did not lower the door. They just left the door, and there used to be another door on the other side, opposite side of the Kaaba in the olden days, but that has also been left. So because this will leave a precedent, okay, for later generations, and people, every ruler would want to break, like they do with the laws. A new government comes in, they scrap the old policies and old laws and old system of the government, and then this new prime minister or president wants to leave his mark on the nation, and he does something new, issues a new currency, or he makes a new law, and everyone would then say that this is the Boris Airport of London, or whatever. So because in order to avoid this, the Imams of fiqh, the Imams of the Quran and Sunnah forbade the early Muslim rulers after the generation of the Sahaba, and even during the lifetime of the Sahaba, they forbade them from tampering with the house of Allah Ta'ala. They said, just leave it as it is. Don't change the doors, don't open another door, don't lower the door is at a very high level, and don't also extend the house to what it originally was, the house of Allah. So that is the hatim. So you will pray after your tawaf. As I was saying, you will pray 2 rakat of tawaf salat, which is wajib, behind the maqam Ibrahim. You will it will be almost impossible for you to perform your salat behind the maqam Ibrahim because of the congestion and pushing and shoving of people. Everyone would want to do the same. You can perform your 2 rakat of tawaf salat anywhere behind maqam Ibrahim in the masjid. If that is not possible, just perform anywhere within al-Masjid al-Haram. That is valid, perfectly fine. After you've done that, you will now go and drink Zamzam water. There used to be a well, Zamzam well. One of these images shows, it's a very old image. You see the one with the photo showing the Kaaba, not the drawing, but the photo shows you the Zamzam well. There used to be a staircase, stairs leading downstairs to the basement underneath the mataf, and there used to be a well there, and there used to be taps there. You must have seen it during the olden days. We saw it when I saw it, alhamdulillah, when I went the first time for Umrah. That's all been covered now. Instead, what you will find is there will be taps at various locations within Al-Masjid al-Haram and outside Al-Masjid al-Haram as well, which will be labeled telling you that this is Zamzam water. So this is Zamzam water which is being pumped, filtered, and which is coming from the actual well. Okay, after treatment, it is coming from the Zamzam well from underneath the ground. Also throughout the Masjid al-Haram and also Al-Masjid al-Nabawi in Medina Munawwara, you will see water coolers, plastic water coolers everywhere within the masjid with plastic cups next to them for you to drink water from, and every cooler has Zamzam water in it. So you will drink Zamzam water. After you've drunk Zamzam water, the method of drinking Zamzam water is that you stand facing the Qibla, facing the Kaaba, which will be in front of you. And there's a dua also. If you can learn the dua, that will be very good. Try and learn this dua. If you don't know the dua, then you can do any dua. You will say, Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'an wa rizqan wasi'an wa shifa'an min kulli da. Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'an. Oh Allah, I ask you beneficial knowledge. Wa rizqan wasi'an. And a very broad, wide provision. Meaning, a rich provision, rizq. وَشِفَاءً مِّن كُلِّ دَاءٍ, and a cure from every form of illness. And cure from every form of illness. Shifa from every form of illness. Try and learn this dua every time you drink Zamzam water, be it at the masjid, be it at a tap, be it in your hotel. Always try and say this dua. Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'an wa rizqan wasi'an wa shifa'an min kulli da. Bismillahi wa barakatillah. And drink the water according to sunnah in free gulps. You will drink the Zamzam water. After that, ideally, the books will state, you then return to the multazam. The multazam is the part of the house of Allah Ta'ala between the black stone and the door of the house of Allah Ta'ala. That space, it's a very small space on the wall of the house of Allah Ta'ala. That is called the multazam. Okay, between the black stone, Al-Hajar al-Aswad, and the door of the house of Allah Ta'ala is the multazam. You will return to the multazam if you can, but in your case you will probably not be able to do it because of the crowd there. the congestion and pushing and shoving that will take place there. You should come to the multazam. One should ideally come to the multazam, put both their palms against the multazam, which is the wall of the house of Allah Ta'ala, between the door and the black stone, and their cheek against the wall, and they should do dua, engage in dua, shed tears, cry to Allah Ta'ala. And the tradition is that whoever does dua clinging onto the multazam, then their dua is certainly accepted by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Shaykh al-Hadith Mawlana Muhammad Zakaria rahimahullah ta'ala mentions this tradition in his virtues of Hajj. And also there's a tradition of the muhaddithun, the transmitters of hadith, who transmit this hadith, and everyone says, every transmitter, narrator says, that I did the same, I did dua at the multazam, and my dua was accepted by Allah Ta'ala. Everyone says this. So if you can do it, then go to the multazam, then or even later, anytime. Just try and go to the multazam. Not advisable for women, because of the obvious reason of bepardagi, but men should try and do it, if you can, without hurting or harming any of the Muslims there. After you've done that, the multazam, you will now do the sa'i between Safa and Marwa, which is the third main thing of your Umrah out of the four, and which is also wajib, the first wajib. There are four things you need to do for Umrah. Anytime, whenever you do Umrah, there are four things you need to do. The first two are fard, the second two are wajib. The first two are ihram and tawaf. The second two, which are wajib, are sa'i between Safa and Marwa, and halq or taqsir, shaving of the head or cutting of the hair. You do sa'i. For sa'i, you will first of all go to Mount Safa. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Ibda'u bima bada Allahu bih," or kama qal. Begin from that with which Allah Ta'ala has begun. Begin from where Allah Ta'ala has begun. So start from where Allah Ta'ala had started. It's a reference to the ayat of the Quran, "Inna as-safa wal marwata min sha'airillah. فَمَنْ حَجَّ الْبَيْتَ أَوْ اِعْتَمَرَ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِ أَن يَطَّوَّفَ بِهِمَا." So Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, "Inna as-safa wal marwata min sha'airillah." Indeed, the Safa, Mount Safa and Mount Marwa are from the emblems, the symbols of Allah. Okay? So Allah Ta'ala here is mentioning what first? Inna as-safa wal marwata, Safa first. So the Prophet ﷺ said, begin from that with which Allah began. So you go to Mount Safa. You will see, if you look, the Mount Safa is located, if you look on your, it's parallel to the black stone. Okay? I don't think, do we have any image or any diagram here? It's in the book. Alright, it's in the book, you're saying. So, where is it? In the middle, right in the middle of the book. Yes, that's right. Right in the middle of the book, of your How to Perform Umrah book. You will see, it is number 1. Right, number 1. Can you see number 1? Yes. So the corner of the house which has the black stone, parallel, right straight from the black stone, if you walk straight, follow the line of the black stone on the floor, then that will lead you to Mount Safa, which is, Mount Safa is now within the structure of the masjid. It's within the roof of the masjid. Mount Marwa as well is within the structure, the building of the masjid. Because the masjid has expanded over the years, over the centuries, and it's now expanding even more. So they're both inside the masjid building. Also, you'll have no difficulty at all finding it. There's also the green light, very green, fluorescent light, long light, tubular light on that wall there. You will notice it from anywhere in the masjid. It's very bright, you can't miss it. The other thing is, it's also, there's a big sign there when you get to that point of the masjid. In English as well as in Arabic, it will say as-Safa. Okay, Safa. If you miss all of these indications, just ask any member of staff of Al-Masjid Al-Haram or any soldier. Just say Safa, just do ishara, where's Safa? And they will show you where Safa is. Make sure you begin your sa'i from Safa. You must begin from Safa. You go towards Safa. Okay? What you will do is, you will now, before your sa'i, it is also mustahab to do an istilam, kissing of the black stone, if possible, in the manner described before. It will probably be impossible for you, so you just leave it. You can't. You will not be able to kiss the black stone then. But it is desirable, preferable to kiss the black stone before you go for your sa'i between Safa and Marwa. You will go and climb on top of Mount Safa. Now, the other way you will recognize Mount Safa from Mount Marwa, if you were to get confused, which inshallah you shouldn't, is that when you ascend, when you get on top of Mount Safa, it's like a hill nowadays. Then from the top of Mount Safa, you'll be able to see the house of Allah. You can see the Kaaba. Whereas from the top of Mount Marwa, the Kaaba is not visible because there's the wall and pillars, etc. block it from view. It's out of view. You will not be, so when you should be able to see the Kaaba from Mount Safa. You get onto Mount Safa, and then you get to a point from where you can see the Kaaba. The Kaaba is visible. I'm not exactly sure how visible it is today because they've been doing all the works.
A little bit you can see.
You should be able to see some of it, inshallah. You will face the Kaaba, raising both your hands. You will, up to the shoulders, and you will say the dua. You will say dua. You will raise your hands the way you do dua, like this. Okay? And you will say this takbir, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. You will say this 3 times. Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. And then you will say, read Durood Sharif, and then you'll do a dua. Now one thing that people neglect during the sa'i between Safa and Marwa is dua. I've always seen this. People neglect the dua. Because by that time, because sa'i is the very last major thing that you need to do. By the time people do sa'i, they become very exhausted. Okay? The heat, perspiration, thirst, etc. And people also losing maybe the temper, maybe. They just want to get it over and done with as soon as possible, and they want to go back to the hotel. A lot of people. Don't do this. There's no rush at all. You will really, really regret it. You will really, throughout your Hajj, do not be hasty in anything. Take your time, make the most of it. And always think to yourself that this is my last visit to the house of Allah. This is my last visit to Medina Munawwara, to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I think to yourself that this is it, I will not be able to return again. Whilst having the hope and dua to Allah Ta'ala that Allah Ta'ala returns you again and again in your lifetime. But you should be fearful and treat this as your last visit, your last safar to Makkah Mukarramah and to Medina Munawwara. Make the most of it. Make the most of it. People don't do dua. Every time you get onto Mount Safa and onto Mount Marwa, you should engage in dua. Turn towards the Kaaba and do dua. Spend as much time as you can doing dua. Those who are with you, make sure that they're also mentally prepared for this. Prepare them for this so that they're not hasty. Your wife is not tugging you, pulling you. Your mom is not pulling you. Explain to them that, this is what we've come here for. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has enabled us, given us this great, unique tawfiq of coming to His house and to these holy sites, Maqamat Muqaddasa, and to Medina Munawwara. This is what we're here for. So why should we be hasty? Why should we be rushing? So do dua. Every time you go to Mount Safa and Mount Marwa, and also during your sa'i between Safa and Marwa, engage in dua all the time. So you'll do a dua, after which you will now start walking at a normal pace towards the other end, which has Mount Marwa. I've given you a little diagram somewhere here in one of the sheets, if you can see. There, sa'i, this one which says sa'i, sin ayn ya, sa'i. Alright. Now this is showing you it is not as short as this is showing you. The distance is quite long. Okay, the distance between Mount Safa and Mount Marwa is quite long, but it's not as short as it shows here. Okay. So you will now start walking from Mount Safa, you'll go down and you start walking towards Mount Marwa. The sa'i area is approximately half a kilometer each round. Okay? It is saying. In other words, so it is half a kilometer long according to this sheet. Anyway, I know, and those who have been there before know, it's not that short. It's quite long from Safa to Marwa. What you will have to do, starting from Mount Safa, you will go all the way to Mount Marwa. you don't have to go right to the top of the mount, which is like a hill nowadays. You don't have to go right to the top. If you do, just to make sure, that's fine. That's one shot, or that's say one round, or 1/7 of your sa'i. From there, from Mount Marwa, you will now return in a similar fashion to Mount Safa. That's 2. Go back again 3, 4, 5, 6. The 7th, which is your end, will end at Mount Marwa. So you begin at Mount Safa and you end at Mount Marwa. Every time you go between the two sets of green lights, which you will not miss. Okay, the green lights will be on either side of you, right and left, and also on the ceiling. So you enter this green zone, if you like. Every time you enter this green zone, the men should be running. Okay, meaning they're not be racing, sprinting, but they should be jogging. Men should be jogging, but not so women. Women are not to run there or jog there. Men should be jogging, walking at briskly, okay, faster than their ramal. So they should be jogging. You see men jogging there between the two sets of green lights. Women should not be doing jogging. They should just be walking at a normal pace. That is in remembrance of what? Yes. Yes. Hajar alayhi salam radiallahu anha, the mother of Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam, when she was running frantically between both Mount Safa and Marwa, looking for water for her baby boy. Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala liked it so much that He's made it part of Hajj and Umrah. That in remembrance of that, we also do the same, but not for the entire space of between Mount Safa and Marwa, but for that location, okay, which has been. What you will do now is, also there's a dua that is also prescribed during your sa'i between Safa and Marwa. You can do any dua, as in tawaf, and also as in all the other things that you will be doing during the course of your Hajj. There's no specified dua. You can do any dua. That's why I've recommended you take a dua book like Al-Hizb Al-A'zam or Munajat Al-Maqbool, or the ones that we've also distributed, Al-Mu'awwadhat, or any other dua book, and just do any dua or every dua from the Quran and Sunnah. There's one dua that is said to be is a Sunnah to say, which is Rabbi Ghfir Warham Antal A'azzul Akram. Rabbi Ghfir Warham Antal A'azzul Akram. Try and learn it. It's on page 19 of your booklet. Try and learn it, and learn the meaning of this dua. You say this dua throughout your sa'i between Safa and Marwa. After you've done that, so what you've done now is, what? You've done, you donned your ihram of your umrah before you entered the miqat. I'm just summarizing now. You entered the miqat zone whilst on the aeroplane. In the case of Baisab, sorry I forgot to answer your question at the beginning. In your case, because he's going to go first to Medina Munawwara, he will not have any ihram at all, even if his flight were to land in Jeddah. Even if his flight were to land in Jeddah first, and from Jeddah he catches another flight to Medina Munawwara, even then he does not have to wear the ihram, even though he's entered the miqat zone. That will not be considered in his case a violation of the sanctity of the miqat zone, because his intention is not the haram. His intention is not al-masjid al-haram. His intention is not the house of Allah. His destination is Medina Munawwara, which is outside the miqat zone on the other side. So there's no ihram for you. When he will be proceeding from Medina Munawwara to perform Umrah, then he will stop before the miqat zone in that direction, from Medina to the direction of Makkah Mukarramah. He will stop at a place called Dhul Hulayfa. All the vehicles stop there. There's a huge, magnificent masjid there with all the facilities in the world that you need for your ihram, and you will enter your state of ihram from there. Okay, in this same similar manner. So for the rest of us, you enter your ihram before you enter the miqat, either at home, at the airport, or on the aeroplane, in the manner described to you yesterday or the day before. And then you went, and then you perform your tawaf, okay, in the manner described, the first part of your umrah. First part, or the quarter, the first of the four things that you need to do for your umrah. Then you did your sa'i. After your tawaf, obviously you prayed your 2 rakat salat, and you did all the other minor things, small things that I've described to you. You did all of those things. So you did your tawaf, you prayed your 2 rakat of salat of tawaf, either behind Maqam Ibrahim or anywhere else in the masjid. Then you did your sa'i between Safa and Marwa 7 times. From Safa to Marwa is 1. Not from Safa to Marwa and Marwa to Safa is 1. If you do that, then you will faint. Alright, very, very long. From Safa to Marwa is 1, Marwa to Safa is 2, and so on until you finish the 7th at Mount Marwa. When you've ended at Mount Marwa, engage in a long dua. Okay? It's also preferable, okay, to pray 2 rakat of salat. Don't pray there, otherwise you could be trampled over or you will cause inconvenience to people. Okay? Just go into the masjid, main area of the masjid, and try and pray 2 rakat of salat after you've done your sa'i between Safa and Marwa. Then, it's not wajib. It is not wajib, it is mustahab. It's not wajib, it's not sunnah, it is mustahab, desirable, rewardable, encouraged. Okay, if you can, if you can't, don't leave it. Or if you've lost wuzu. The other thing is, when you're doing sa'i between Safa and Marwa, unlike your tawaf, wudu is not a condition. To be in a state of wudu is not a condition. When you're doing sa'i between Safa and Marwa, there's no need for you to be in a state of wudu. However, if you are in a state of wudu, that's well and good, because then you're in a complete state of taharat paki. That's the absolute form of paki that one can be in, cleanliness, to be in a state of wudu. If you are in a state of wudu, or you're not in a state of wudu, or you're in a state of wudu and you lose your wudu during the course of your sa'i between Safa and Marwa, don't worry about it, just carry on. After you finish, try and pray 2 rakat of salat if possible. If it's not possible, you're exhausted or you don't have wudu, you can just leave it. Drink some water. Okay? Some water again. After that, the 4th thing remains of your umrah, which will also exit you from your ihram, which is to either shave your head, in the case of men, which is most desirable, 3 times better, because the Prophet ﷺ did dua 3 times for the muhalliqun, the ones who shave their head. And for men and on women, for women this is the only option they have, and for men this is their second option, which is to shorten their hair. And this is what I wanted to highlight today. Shortening of the hair, as I've mentioned yesterday, must be for both men and women, must be 1 inch, at least 1 inch. At least 1 inch must be shortened from your hair. That's a condition for you to exit your ihram. For a man, if his hair is already less than 1 inch, then he's not given this option of doing shortening of the hair, trimming of the hair. He must now shave. Okay. For women, obviously the hair will be long, so they must cut 1 inch of their hair. You must shave or cut your hair 1/4 of the hair of your head. 1/4. That's the bare minimum that you must do. 1/4. Okay. So for a man who wants to shave, he must shave 1/4 of his head. 1/4 of the hair on his head must be shaven, or his head. Even a person could be bald. It could be a complete skinhead permanently. In his case, he still has to run a blade, razor, on his skinhead. He has to, even though there's no hair on his head, or there's very little hair on his head. So 1/4 must be done of that. Even for a woman must cut 1 inch of her hair, and it must be at least 1/4 of the hair on her head. Which means, for example, if a woman, for argument's sake I'm saying, obviously a woman will have more hair than this. If a woman were to have 1,000 strands of hair, 100 strands of hair on her head, 1,000, then she must cut 1 inch of how many hairs?
25.
No, 1,000. Did I say 100 or 1,000? I said both. Alright, let's go for the lesser, then it's easier. The calculation will be easier for you then. If you go for 100, if I say 1,000, you would think it's a big number, then how can I find a quarter of that? If a woman has 100 strands of hair on her head, then how many hairs must she cut? 25. That's 1/4 of 100, and 1 inch has to be cut. So you have to be women have to be very careful that they do this, and not less than 1/4. So when a woman holds her hair towards the back, like my Shimlov, my Imam, my Pagri here, she will hold all her hair together, and she will make sure she cuts from the end 1 inch, and she must make sure that it's at least 1/4, 1/4 of the total number of hairs she has on her head. Men will shave or cut similarly at least 1/4. That's the bare minimum. Obviously, if you're shaving your head, you will shave the entire. You will not just shave just 1/4 of it and leave the rest of your head as it is. That will be makruh tahriman anyway. In Islam, that is makruh tahrimi. Okay, very close to haram to do that. But I'm telling you that the bare minimum legally that you must do in order to exit your ihram and complete your umrah package. The other thing I will quickly mention here is, you will see a lot of people doing bepardagi there. A lot of women they perform their Umrah, covering their hair fully, and then in front of all these public Muslims, thousands of Muslims there, you will see on Mount Marwa, women gathering and taking their headscarf off or exposing their hair in front of all the entire world, and they are cutting each other's hair on Mount Marwa. Okay, that is wrong, that's haram, najaiz, bepardagi, behijabi, don't do that. The other thing that you can do, so women should go back to their hotels, places of residence, and they should do this in their places of residence. The other thing which you can do is that when you are now, you've done everything for your Umrah, you've done your tawaf and sa'i, and you're now, just this remains. Then a person who is in a state of ihram and also done this, can either do it himself or herself, the shaving or the cutting for themselves, or for another person who is in a similar stage of their Umrah, meaning that they've completed everything and just this remains, the shaving or the cutting of the hair. They can do it themselves, or they can do it to another Haji, Mu'tamir, person performing Umrah. Anyone can do it for anyone. Okay, as long as the condition is that you must have completed everything and you have just this remaining. This is just left in your Umrah. So you can do it for your wife, and your wife can shave your head for you. Okay, you can do it for your fellow Muslim brother, and he can do yours for you. Or you can just go to the barber shop and pay them 10, 15, 20 riyals and just get.
People sometimes they got no choice. They cut each other hair.
Yeah.
In Umrah, and people even pulling you, say, come to over. We'll cut
Yeah. Okay. Well, so that's your Jazakallah. That's your Umrah completed now. Alhamdulillah. May Allah Ta'ala accept your Umrah. That's your Umrah done. Now you become halal. You can have a shower, you can use shampoo, you can use itar, perfume, everything. And also husband and wife relationships, everything is now halal, everything is jaiz. Until the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, when you will now enter a new state of ihram with the intention of your Hajj, inshallah, which we will discuss tomorrow. Be here on time, and inshallah we'll have to go through it very fast tomorrow, and then we need to finish this on Friday. وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم.
يا